You know that sound? That drip, 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 right in the middle of the night? Oh yeah, we've all been there. It is probably one of the most common and, let's be honest, most annoying household problems you can have. Today, we are diving deep into faucet and sink issues, and we're going to break down everything you need to know about the real impact, the solutions, and what you should look for in a pro right here in Gatineau.
I mean, we've all done it, right? You're lying in bed, you're trying to sleep, and the only thing you can hear is that sound. But it's so much more than just an annoyance. Have you ever really stopped and thought, what is that constant drip actually costing you? I bet the answer is a whole lot more than you think. So, let's talk about that infamous drip. It seems so small, doesn't it? Such a minor issue, but as we're about to see, that little sound is often a big warning sign for issues lurking just out of sight, and its impact, well, it adds up way faster than you can imagine. And look at this. That little drip is really just the tip of the iceberg. We're talking about all kinds of stuff, from low water pressure that makes doing the dishes a total drag, to those sneaky leaks under the sink that can cause some seriously expensive water damage. Whether it's a drain that takes forever, an old fixture that just looks bad, or that chalky buildup from hard water, these are all symptoms that really need a professional eye.
Okay, so we know it's annoying, but what is the actual damage to your wallet and, to the environment when you just ignore that leak? Let's break down the numbers because this is where it gets really eye-opening. Just take a look at this. A single faucet, dripping just once per second. It seems like nothing, right? But that tiny drip wastes about 5 gallons of water every single day. To put that in perspective, picture one of those huge blue water cooler jugs. You're basically pouring one of those straight down the drain every day.
Now, if you let that same faucet go for a whole year, you've just wasted over 2,000 gallons of water. It adds up so incredibly fast, and that hits both the environment and your water bill pretty hard. 2,000 gallons, it's a number that's kind of hard to picture, right? Well, think about it like this. That's the same amount of water you'd use to take 180 extra showers. Wow. When you frame it like that, you realize fixing a small leak isn't just about stopping a noise. It's about stopping a massive amount of waste.
All right, so you've decided to tackle the problem. Good for you. Now you've got the big question. Do you repair the faucet you have, or is it time to just replace the whole thing? Let's break down how to make that call.
This chart here makes the choice super clear. It really comes down to balancing age, condition, and cost. So on one hand, if your faucet is pretty new, say under 7 years old, and it's a simple fix like a worn-out washer, a repair totally makes sense. But on the other hand, if it's old, corroded, has a bunch of different problems, or you're just ready for an upgrade to a more water-efficient model, well, then replacement is definitely the smarter long-term investment.
So what should you expect when you call in a pro? Well, any service worth its salt is going to follow a clear, transparent process. It always starts with a thorough assessment to find the real root of the problem. Then, they should give you clear options, not just push you into one solution. You want to see them using quality parts, doing a careful and secure installation, and, this is absolutely key, they need to test everything thoroughly to make sure it's perfect before they even think about leaving.
Okay, so we know the ideal process, but what does a top-tier service provider actually look like in the real world? To make this super concrete, we're going to use a local company, Plombier Gatineau, as a kind of case study for the qualifications and standards you should be looking for.
First thing you should always look for is experience and a local presence. For example, Plombier Gatineau has been serving this community since 2012. That's over a decade of tackling these exact problems for people right here in the Ottawa region. Sticking around that long in a local market, that's a great sign of reliability.
Now listen up, because this slide is incredibly important no matter who you end up hiring. These are the absolute non-negotiables. A valid RBQ license, that proves they're qualified, registered, and insured. Being a member of a professional group like the CMMTQ, that shows they're committed to high industry standards. And full liability insurance, that means you, the homeowner, are completely protected. Always ask to see these credentials.
And beyond all the licenses, you want to look at a company's values. What do they promise? Things like upfront pricing with no surprise fees, a guarantee on their work, and a clear respect for your home, showing up on time and leaving the place spotless. These are the little details that separate a decent service from a really great one.
All right, so we've identified the problem, we understand the true costs, and we've walked through what a professional, trustworthy service looks like. So let's talk about the final step, actually getting it done.
So I guess the real question for you is, are you ready to stop putting up with the annoyance and the waste? Are you ready for service that actually respects your time and your home?
If the standards we've been talking about today, using Plombier Gatineau as our example, sound like what you're looking for, well, then the next step is pretty simple. There's their direct line right there, 819-317-0262.
And hey, if there's any hesitation left, a commitment like this should give you some serious peace of mind. The best companies will stand by their work with things like 24/7 emergency service, free quotes so there are never any surprises, and an ironclad satisfaction guarantee. It really makes the decision to call a no-brainer. Totally risk-free. At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. That small drip is an easy fix today, but it can turn into a huge headache tomorrow. So why wait? Get your peace and quiet back by calling a proven, trusted local expert. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.